You are listening to the Bats and Seahorses podcast. Welcome to the 5th episode of Bats and Seahorses podcast, in which I interview successful scientists and artists about their work life, about their habits, about how they view life, how they view their work, and what made them successful, what made them passionate and motivated to pursue a career in a creative discipline. This time I interview Markus Rissanen, who is a Finnish artist, but he's special in a way that he has also contributed to science, namely mathematics. He has designed a tiling which generalizes the Penrose tiling problem. I have written about this in my blog. You can find it at batsandseahorses.com/sub-rosa. SUB-ROSA. That is how Markus Rissanen called his invention. The paper, Markus eventually ended up writing, co-authoring with a mathematician, Jarkko Kari. They ended up publishing in Discrete and Computational Geometry last year. So that is by all means very impressive. Markus Rissanen was born in 1973 and he started studying at the Academy of Fine Arts in Helsinki in 1996. In 2001, he became Masters of Arts and he has worked for 16 years as a professional artist, and he's about to defend his PhD thesis in just 2 months. And if you are now in Helsinki, I definitely recommend that you visit Galleria Heino, where you can see not only Markus's paintings, which are a fantastic combination of geometric shapes and old computer graphic-like paintings, which however are not designed with a computer, as we find out in the interview, but also mixed with organic kind of painting texture. Not only that, you also see plenty of sketches from the time when Markus was working on the tiling problem. You will see artists' mathematical notes. This is something very exceptional. You will see how the thought process of an artist, when it's going in a mathematical direction, is trying to solve a mathematical problem, what comes out. You know, mathematicians do produce lots of scribbles, but they're not accompanied with very creative artistic components, and this is what you can see in Markus Rissanen's exhibition. I repeat, Galleria Heino Uudenmaankatu 16/20. That is in the very central Helsinki, Finland. And you can see glimpses of those on my webpage too, where you find also this podcast. It is batsandseahorses.com/podcast. I found out about Markus through my colleague Juha Oikkonen at the mathematics department of University of Helsinki when I received the news about the tiling problem solved. And I wrote in my blog about this in the aforementioned post, and Markus Rissanen immediately contacted me because I sent him my blog post and he called me, and then we went for a coffee and I read his PhD thesis, which was extremely interesting. Also, I looked at some mathematical parts he had there. And one last thing, it's a small warning. We conducted the interview in a library, and due to a misunderstanding, there were also other people working in the same room. So you will hear other people talking in the background. I hope you will not be too distracted about that. I'm really sorry about that. I also am sorry for not performing an independent component analysis on the raw data, which on the other hand would probably result in a very bad quality sound, since my microphones, even though I have 2, which is sufficient in theory, are located very close to each other, and my guess is that the sound quality of our voices, even if separated with an ICA algorithm, would be kind of poor. And even if not, I don't have time to do that because I needed to publish this podcast before the exhibition of Markus ends in 2 weeks. So without further ado, I give you Markus Rissanen. Markus Rissanen is here with me, and how we met. Originally, I wrote about you in my blog because I was fascinated by just the fact that you're an artist and you make progress in mathematics.
Yeah.
And so then you called me, and then I proofread your PhD thesis.
Or the mathematical parts.
Yeah. Well, so but I actually read most of it because
Okay.
it was pretty interesting anyway.
Uh-huh.
So we can start up actually from this. So you recently graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts.
Well, actually, I graduated from the master's level in 2001.
Yes, sure.
So I've been working as a professional artist for 16 years now.
Yeah.
And I will quite soon finish my PhD in.
Okay,
in
I
fine
thought
arts.
that you just finished the PhD, but you're
No, it's actually the public examination will be on May.
Okay.
20th May, so it's still coming in 2
Okay,
months'
okay.
time. Mhm.
I will try to drop by
Yeah, okay.
at the
That's nice.
examination.
Yes.
In Finland, there is a very big tradition around PhD examinations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how is it in arts, but in science, at least, the defense is a very big thing, and then you have karonka.
Yes,
Which
the
is a
party
big
afterwards.
party.
Yes, I think it's more. They have kept it kind of more formal in Finland than in some other countries.
Yeah, all the traditions are preserved.
Yeah, with the dark suits and
Yeah.
roasting the candidate and.
Yeah, that's right. Who was actually your supervisor?
I had 2 supervisors in this thesis, and the principal supervisor is the Swedish artist Jan Svenungsson, who is at the moment he's teaching at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, Austria, but he was a part-time professor at the Academy of Fine Arts at the time when I started my PhD studies there. And then at some point I started to search another supervisor of this kind of external expertise who might know more about the history of science and the scientific content. And then in the end I found a Finnish astronomer emeritus Tapio Markkanen, and he became my secondary supervisor. So in the end I had 2 of them.
For those who are interested, I will make a list of those names at the webpage. As I already mentioned, you made some mathematical work, namely related to tilings, and especially, well, it starts from the idea of Penrose tiling, which is used to be like the only type of tiling which has certain properties, like it's non-periodic, but it's in a certain sense quasi-periodic, and it's rotational. It has a rotational symmetry around 1 point, which is 5-fold. And you developed. I think that's just amazing. You developed tilings which have the same properties to a large extent, but have larger symmetries, like 7-fold and 10-fold.
It's eventually my idea developed in the system which can be generalized to any integer. So it works basically from 2 onwards. It can be the rotational symmetry can be 2, 4, 3-fold, 5-fold, and there's no upper limit, so it works basically for all integers.
For any integers. It would be interesting to write a computer program which can generate
actually,
those.
yes. Yeah, it might be, because in the end the solution doesn't actually contain a complete how to do algorithm. It doesn't have this kind of building instruction. It just proves that this solution exists.
Okay.
So it's kind of still a partial solution. And there's also one crucial difference between the Penrose tiling and my tilings, because the Penrose tiling, or the tilings, they are aperiodic, which means that all the tilings are forced to be non-periodic.
Yeah.
So there's certain restriction rules how you can fix the tiles together, and in my system it doesn't have this kind of forcing thing, so they can be organized in just like boring periodic way.
Yes.
But my system gives a way how to do it in non-periodic way with a rotational symmetry for all integers. I have understood that it might be possible to transform this my system into aperiodic tiling, but then it wasn't quite sure if this rotational property would remain in the process, because there's certain theorem that says that you can actually do this, changing this certain set of tiles into a periodic set, but it doesn't say anything about maintaining some other properties. So the property of rotational symmetry most probably would be lost in this transformation.
I see. So your tilings are non-periodic, but the tiles are such that you can reorganize them to have a periodic tiling. That's the difference.
Yes,
While the Penrose tiles themselves can never be used to tile the plane in a periodic way.
Yes,
right?
or actually the Penrose tiling, you can think that there's kind of notches of physical some locks that force this, or then other way of thinking is that there's some kind of coding or numbers attached or some other rules drawn into the tiles which you have to obey. But in the basic level, the Penrose tiles can also be just like normal rhombs.
Yes.
Like my tiles.
Yes,
and the normal rhombs, of course, you can put in simple row and columns, so there's no problem. But you have to have these additional rules to make them behave non-periodic way.
Yeah, that's what also crossed my mind. But we shouldn't go too much into the details.
No, at least not yet.
But if you are the listener, you are in Helsinki right now, you should definitely visit Markus' exhibition in Galleria Heino, where you can in particular see his drawings from the time when he was developing those tilings. And pictures of them are also found on my webpage next to this podcast. And I think it's fascinating how much, well, you're an artist, so you approach it very visually, and you drew large and huge, very beautiful sketches of those tilings. And even before you were sure how they actually work and whether they work at all, you were already sketching and trying to fit them together, and eventually you came up with it. And here is, I have several questions about this. And one is how would you compare the mathematical work and the artistic work? You also you have also seen like real mathematicians working, and you did
which I am
joint
not.
work. You are not a mathematician,
no,
but I think you have fairly good understanding of the mathematician's work. How would you compare? What is common between mathematics and art? What is different between mathematics and art?
Well, I could say of those drawings first in the presented now in this back room of the gallery that they are actually genuine sketches from the time that I was still developing the thing, and they are not kind of not all of them. They are not like ready results. So there's actually visible this process of thinking and trying and making mistakes and writing some crazy notes for myself that this definitely does not work, and here's a mistake, and circling it with a red pen, and it's this kind of process working. But there's also this kind of finished drawings where the system is completely solved and made this kind of last drawing of that. But I'm quite sure that if one would compare the work of mathematician and artist, also the mathematicians would have a lot of these kind of scribbles and this kind of all kind of funny paper which mostly might go in the trash or in the drawing board.
Yes.
But definitely it wouldn't go to the wall or publications. This kind of thing that you need for the yourself to keep the process running and getting these
Yes.
ideas and testing things, and quite often they don't work actually, and
Yeah.
you don't put them publicly in the show.
Do you have the same with art? Do you make lots of sketches which you throw away before you finish?
I make some amount of sketches, yes, and some of them might end up as a ready painting in my case, because I'm making my this kind of actual artistic work. I'm doing them in the painting, so I have some sketches of ideas of this and that, and some of they might be almost like one-to-one to my finished paintings. But some of them I never actually used, or I discarded at some point that this won't work as a work. And so there's some
But is it
material
still different? At least I have the intuition that in art you have much more freedom.
Oh yes, certainly,
Okay.
certainly, because I mean in the perhaps the most essential difference that in the art you can always change the rules on the run,
Right.
which is not allowed in mathematics. So if you have a set of rules and you have to find a solution to some problem, then you have some certain limits that you cannot really break if you are playing that particular game. And of course you can then make another kind of assumptions that okay, if you start from assume some other facts where you begin from, then you make another kind of results, but you cannot actually change the rules from on the flight. But in the arts you are kind of free to do whatever at whatever stage you want.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference, and that's I have to say that's also one essential difference which I really enjoyed doing these tiling things compared to the arts, because when I'm doing some paintings, I can at any point I can choose to change some color or change some form, or just like paint it over completely. But when I was doing these tiling things, there's always this kind of set boundaries, or these things that you have kind of selected, and then you stay on them, and you have to find a solution inside of those.
You have to
rules.
operate within certain boundary conditions.
Yes. So those boundary conditions are very kind of inspiring, also in the way that it's a different kind of game in this perspective.
In mathematics, we also have this happening sometimes to change the theorem that we're proving. We start proving something, but we cannot quite prove it, but we end up proving something else.
Yeah.
You have an idea of the proof before you have an idea of the theorem. That is sometimes the case, which is maybe something to do with this.
Yeah. And sometimes it might be happen that actually what you can prove is a little bit less than you thought, or it might be like totally something else from the besides.
Yeah.
And it can be even more fascinating than you originally
Exactly.
was going towards to.
Another question that crossed my mind at your exhibition is that apart from some crystal shapes, there was almost no tilings in your paintings.
No, that's true. And also the crystals were kind of a funny allusion to these tilings. But that's true. I haven't mixed them up, or I haven't used them as a subject matter in my paintings. And I don't know if one reason is that I kind of approach the tiling things, or I see them as a flat two-dimensional systems, and I'm kind of operating in more dimensional world in my paintings. So I would feel kind of awkward to use a flat two-dimensional pattern as a part of three-dimensional world, which is very playful and colorful, and it's also that they are rather laborious to make the tilings actually at some point.
Yeah.
So so it's also a question of the amount of time you use for some particular work and painting. So it's kind of gives more freedom to do something else than use the tiling as a paintings. But
That's right. The paintings are very three-dimensional. and some of the figures are very beautiful, inspiring. Especially the one I like, the one that is floating in the air, and it's like a three-dimensional figure 8.
Yeah, and having this kind of holes. And
yeah. We even calculated the homologic group of that.
Okay.
With my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Because we're mathematicians.
Did you see the title of the work?
I'm not sure.
Because in the sense it looks like a UFO, and that's why I was calling in my head as a UFO. But then I was thinking the name that because UFO means like unidentified flying object, and
yes.
this is not flying; it's kind of hovering, levitating. It's not like flying all over. So the painting was titled UHO, unidentified hovering object.
Oh, we missed that. We didn't look at the title.
Yeah. So it's kind of a relative for UFOs, but it's not flying; it's just hovering.
Okay, yeah.
But also in this object, I was kind of playing with this kind of idea that if you have certain kind of rules or system, and you are partly obeying it, but partly breaking it, because this object is not so fixed. The structure and the holes, they don't have this kind of strict order. It's not any regular solid, or it's kind of a fantasy.
Yeah, that's why you can't stop looking at it, because you want to kind of
solve.
You want to understand it, and it takes time.
Yeah, because there's certain kind of definite rules that you can see, but it's not like completely made according to some simple rules.
Did you actually make it a three-dimensional at some point?
No. The beginning point was just like line drawings on the paper.
Yeah.
And which is usually the case, that if I'm making a painting with some kind of a sketch, I'll first make just a pencil sketch or pen sketch on the paper, and then I transform it to the overhead projector, this kind of plastic sheet, as a line drawing, and then I throw the picture in the larger scale on the actual canvas with the old traditional overhead projector, and then I start to tracing the lines and selecting the colors.
Oh, beautiful.
So I have a stack of this kind of used overhead projector plastic sheets which have this kind of same.
Is that common to do in art?
I don't know how common.
Draw a small one and project it?
Yeah, I mean at least if you are doing a big wall painting or something in the public thing, then usually you want to use this kind of.
But Michelangelo didn't have a projector.
No, he didn't.
But they used something, like they would take in your thesis I read about it. The strings.
And now also the Vermeer, he used the camera obscura. He used definitely a real camera obscura even with the lens. That it wasn't just a pinhole camera in the dark room.
When was that?
In 17th century.
Wow, a lens made of crystal or
glass.
Glass.
Yeah. Because they have been analyzing this perspective and these angles in his paintings, and there's actually even some kind of small point where you can actually see a pinpoint in the middle where he has been marking this vanishing point.
Wow.
And there's some nice analysis of these things, but so it wasn't any specialty to also for artists or painters to use this kind of aids or machines, and also the Canaletto, who painted this kind of Venetian views and the buildings and those castles there. He was very famous of using this camera obscura at the time. Also, like I guess it was in the 17th century. So it was a well-known aid or mechanical thing to help the painters.
I see.
But at some point of the art history, then they some kind of became more and more, I guess, a bit shame of using this kind of aids or even photographs. When the photograph took off in the in the 19th century. Then many of those famous artists, they also actually used photographs a lot, but they never kind of told it publicly. And then they later art historians have been founding these kind of photographs which are almost like one-to-one to some of those work, and then definitely have used those, and also some famous Finnish artists.
Okay.
But it's
so they took a photograph secretly, and then they would make a painting using it, maybe even projecting.
Yes. Perhaps, yeah. Because
but not telling anyone.
Yeah, exactly, because it didn't fit this public image or the myth of the genius or making it with bare hands, and so. But I think these kind of things have been using.
Yeah.
Since whatever times.
I wonder what kind of tricks artists use nowadays and not tell anyone.
Yeah.
Because nowadays you can do whatever.
Photoshop.
Well, Photoshop and nowadays you can use 3D printing and whatever.
Yeah. So I guess this kind of traditional overhead projector with a simple lamp is kind of rather simple way to transform the line drawing. But that's what I'm been finding as a practical way, that I don't need or I don't want any more complicated thing. That somebody has asked me quite often that do I plan my drawings beforehand with a computer and try different colors and then print, kind of sketch and then make the painting. But that's actually doesn't work. That's not the way I want to work. I never tried this kind of system.
But your paintings look remarkably often like as if they were made with a computer. That's definitely a conscious decision.
Yes, or at least a little like previously, that there was no brushwork visible, and all the borders of the different colors were kind of this kind of sharp, hard edge.
So it looks a little bit like an old video game where they use 16
70s
colors.
or 80s computer graphics. Yes. That's kind of the world or the graphical look that I was much interested in like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that's I wanted to have this kind of feeling in the painting. As also at the time I kind of suddenly saw kind of similarities between this kind of game and childish, colorful world, and some scientific visualizations which have also been using this kind of simple colors to code some information and using simple patterns to present some information, diagrams. And so I was playing with those elements and combining these visual things from totally another kind of cultures, like taking this and that from scientific visualizations and cooking it up with some children's images or toys, and that's how my kind of a style or this thing developed like then 16 years ago. But now in these newest paintings I have been using a bit more painterly.
Yes, I noticed, and I like it a lot.
With the brushwork and splashes visible,
so now you combine these two together, and this contrast is amazing. When you have part of the painting is as if it's made with a computer, and then you can see how the paint sometimes just becomes very organic.
Yeah. So that's a kind of a bit new approach for me for the working, because previously it was very conscious decision that I will try this kind of non-painterly way of working to get my own space in art world, or make this kind of to develop a certain distinctive style. And actually I didn't feel that much home in this kind of painterly paintings or this kind of working, but then I think I have become more and more get used to some kind of that. Okay, this is also a possible way to work, and now I'm kind of trying experimenting how it looks if I give myself freedom to do technically whatever.
Right.
And also not to jump from one extremity to another end of spectrum, but combining them and see what's happening when they clash. This kind of technical.
That's
things.
It works.
Yes. Well, it's nice to hear if the viewer think that it's interesting, because sometimes yourself, you're not so. I mean, it's difficult to know if something works from the perspective of the viewer, because artists might be very fascinated and interested doing something, and then the viewer just like, what's this? And
one of the artists at your exhibition said that probably nobody understands my art when we're talking about mathematics and art. Yeah. When you work, do you have like long periods when you work a lot and then long periods when you don't, or do you just always work? How is it?
Usually I work quite steadily, but I have to confess that this time there was a rather, for me at least, a rather long break because of writing this thesis for the artistic PhD doctorate, because it just took so much time to just like searching interesting books and references,
yes,
and to read them through and make notes and just to shape what I'm actually trying to do, and then writing it down. So it's just like there was I could say like a break of 3 or 4 years that I really didn't practically paint at all.
Oh wow, so long. So, yeah, but that's how much it takes to write a thesis.
Yeah, because before that I had some tiny parts or some ideas or the parts of the text, but then in the end I think I wrote it all over. That nothing actually remained what was done before that. So it was more or less the last 2 years when I was actually writing the thing, and before that it was few years when I was just reading and making notes. And
how would you compare the time when you normally paint, let's say every day, I don't know how many hours, and then on the other hand you were working on a PhD thesis? Did you have a change in the daily routines, or was it still?
Not really that kind of change. I mean, having small children makes you certain boundary rules.
How old are your children now?
The younger, he turns 5 soon, and the older she's 8 years. So they still need a lot of attention.
How do you manage? How do you organize your professional life and your family life?
You have to get them going to the kindergarten or the school in the morning, and then you have this 5-6 hours in between, and then you have to get back home or run into kindergarten to get them.
So you don't work at home normally? You have a separate.
Well, when I was writing the thesis, I was actually doing it quite a lot at home, because that's where I had all the books and my laptop and so on. So it was just more practical and more peaceful. But of course, I have a separate studio at Herttoniemi in Helsinki, so that's where I'm usually painting. But so it was a different, a kind of different way of working in this respect. That I was writing or working at the home at this 4 years time, almost completely.
And when you paint, you take your children to the kindergarten, then you go to your studio, you spend 4 or 5 hours
there,
and then you go back.
I have to start putting the things on the shelf and closing the tubes and cleaning the brushes and go to metro. So that's more or less how it works. But then I have to say that I often very much enjoy working late nights.
Yeah.
So that's something which has probably been dropped out quite a lot
for the last 8 years,
more or less. But I mean, at this case, with this previous exhibition, that my wife was looking after the children quite a lot of, especially this last month. So I was working very, very many evenings, very late at my studio, or in the weekends I was even working there through the whole night, or sleeping back there. So we're working.
Is that in the Herttoniemi teollisuusalue?
Yes.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
I used to have a studio there as well.
Okay, this is in Sorvaajan katu.
Yeah, exactly.
Next to Marimekko and
Yes, exactly.
between the Starkki.
Yeah, now I'm happy to have a similar one at home. I have a small room at home where I'm planning to do animations. So the best conditions for concentrations for you is late at night at your studio.
Well, I wouldn't say like for concentration. It's more like that's the time when the most craziest ideas just pop up. You know,
Creativity.
it's the most creative time for me. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I was listening to your previous interview with Olli Martio, and there was actually one idea which I have been thinking myself also quite a lot, because he said that this 5 seconds per year is enough creativity, and then the rest is just like hard work. Because I have been having this joke for many years already that as an artist I'm working 24 seconds per day. And that's
interesting.
Kind of, so that's 24 seconds you get some nice ideas, but the rest is just like physical execution of the thing and stretching the canvas and priming. And but it's the same thing that's about when you get some fresh ideas and get some new perspective perhaps on the work you are doing at the moment, and the rest is just like execution of the thing which you already know how to do. But it's the same kind of idea.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe.
But he Martio had it even less with the 5 seconds per year. But I thought it's 24 seconds per day.
Per day. That sounds.
But,
cool.
Yeah, and then of course the people, if you see it written, of course they mix it up and think that okay he means like 24 hours per day. But it's
yeah. Do you find art lonely? You have to work alone in your studio, but is it?
Previously, I didn't feel it like a lonely, or I wasn't thinking it as much. But there's some points after you've been spending like 16, 17 years on the doing, then you start realize that okay, there's some things which you actually don't have, which you will normally have in some kind of normal working conditions or some working groups and working with other people. So it's
you're developing your own ideas and your own style.
Mm-hmm.
This is one thing that has been interesting to me.
And solving all the problems yourself.
Yeah.
There's nobody.
Why don't artists do joint work? Why don't you call your friend and say, let's make a painting together? Do you ever do that? Or are there artists?
Not really like doing work together. It's more like just if one needs some assistant at some critical point, like doing some public work on some, like painting or on the wall, and it has to be finished on some particular date, and you just need to have helping hands. Then of course you can ask your friends.
Okay.
But not really like creating something together. I don't know if the people are so stubborn that they want to do the things on their own way.
Yeah, is it because art is somehow very personal?
It is, but I mean there's also a lot of communal or this kind of shared or social art around nowadays, which is happening or creating as in a social
music.
Yeah, and also like fine arts, which is not. I mean, painting. The results are not like paintings or sculptures or graphics. It's more like new media things or things which are approaching more like performances or whatever.
Yeah. And of course, performance art is always done. By
yeah,
many
it's
people.
kind of a theater performance, of course. Yeah. Well, Jean-Michel Basquiat and Andy Warhol, they did some paintings together. But then afterwards, I mean, they're both like extremely famous, and their works are extremely expensive. But this particular works which they made together are not so much valuated, actually.
It's funny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So It's a strange thing because you would think that it's even more expensive or even more higher valuated when it's done by both, but it's actually not the case. It's kind of strange.
Imagine a painting done by Picasso together with Monet or whatever. That would be impossible. I think they work at the same time.
Or Marcel Duchamp or whatever.
Yeah. But in mathematics, the switch happened around the time when airplanes started flying, and then even more when emails appeared. There was definitely a switch because 100 years ago, mathematicians worked alone, like artists today. And I've been always wondering, why didn't the same happen in art? And is it going to happen?
I guess on some areas or fields of art it has happened, and it does happen, but then I don't know if painting is some kind of, I don't know if it's more personal thing to do, or there's some few examples, but they are not very common. So painters who have done works like together or group of 3 people.
What would you say if your friend called you and said, "Look, Markus, I would like to make a painting together. Your style, my style. What about that?" What would you say? What would you think?
I think we would need to start negotiating what we are doing, what we are approaching to, and what's the goal. Because I know that some of my friends, they have been doing drawings together. That somebody starts to do something, and then he passes the paper to next one, and he continues, and then to the third one, and then this kind of collaboration with perhaps 3, 4, 5 people maximum.
But it's not, you don't plan it in advance.
No, it's just like you have to pass it on, and then the next to whatever he or she pleases. But
played the kind of game when we were kids.
I guess But I think it could be. I don't know. Is it more frustrating that you don't get through the exact, you have this vision that the other don't quite agree with this idea, and then it might be interesting experience to try. It's like
several questions about motivation, discipline, passion. So what is the most important? Motivation, discipline, or passion? You definitely have discipline because you have to take your children to school in the morning. Then you have very limited time to work. But you need. So what about motivation? Is that something comes naturally to you, or do you have to do something to get motivated? Do you have times when you have very low motivation? What do you do then?
Yeah, it has some changes. I mean, it's not like 24/7 inspiration. I mean, that's just a fact. But it doesn't definitely pay off to sit and wait for inspiration. I mean, that's not the way to do it, because it's wonderful if you get inspiration and some vision that this is what I want to do. But if you don't get one, then if you are professional in some field, then you just have to start doing something, and that's how quite many works actually start. That I'm in the studio and I will try this and that and doing things, and then at some point you start to see some interesting things from some sketches or older things which you didn't actually notice before, and that's gets you going, and then you can inspire of some things which you can see.
So even if you are not motivated, you just should start. I think that's a very good advice.
Yes. I think that's the only way to do it, because I mean, if you would be just like, if painting would be your hobby, I mean, you could do it only when you feel like, if you're a Sunday painter.
But still,
like if you would be a musician, you would just have you would need to go and play when you have agreed to have a concert or whatever. You just cannot say that I just don't feel like it today, or then either you have to be a big diva or star.
Some rock musicians do that.
Yeah. I just don't feel like playing.
Or they just get too drunk or something.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a really inspiring thing which gets you driving, and then sometimes you just don't know anything what to do, and you just don't feel like doing anything, but then just wisest thing is to just do something and pick all sketches and trying to do some, whatever experiments, and then suddenly you will see some small things that here could be something, and then it starts develop, work up. And that's kind of, I found that actually quite amazing. That's how does that actually evolve? Because first you have kind of nothing, and then something pops up from out of blue.
Nothing.
Yeah. And then it starts like rolling. It's kind of strange feeling, because you might even feel that I don't feel like doing anything, and definitely not like doing some painting, and
it might be that on those days you actually create the best things.
Yeah. You never know beforehand. Yeah, it's strange where it pops up. It would be nice to have the thing like bottled up, and you could just take it from the shelf when you need it. But it's strange.
Once when I was a young student, and I asked my supervisor, what do I do when I said something, I didn't feel like doing mathematics yesterday, so I didn't.
Yeah.
So he answered that if you want to be a professional, you need to be able to get yourself into the state of mind where you do it. He didn't say how, though. I have some questions that my friends suggested to me previously. What about what is the greatest work-related moment you've ever experienced?
Work-related. Do you mean like should we interpret the work now as artistic work or mathematical? Geometrical?
Both.
I think as an artist, at least I can remember the very exciting moment when I got my first grant. So that was the moment when I felt that, hey, I'm really have done something which is worthwhile. That
now
somebody
you're a real artist.
Yes. And it was that's something which made me feel like, okay, now I'm not anymore kind of a student or wannabe artist. That now I'm a real artist.
Yeah,
it felt so good to.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many this kind of tiny little moments while working that it's actually different to pinpoint something.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that was an interesting answer. And actually, I wanted also to ask about financing and funding. Do you? How big?
I could first say, because of this mathematical moment, because or the geometrical, because I actually have perhaps more specific. This kind of specific moment which I remember very well, which was a great a revelation or a feeling for myself, because I actually the first thing was already in the junior high school, because I had been very interested of drawing like perspective drawings and studying perspective, but I had made the decision that I don't want to read the perspective theory from the books, that I want to just like draw and find the things out myself.
Figure out by yourself.
Yeah, figure out, and just by drawing and making strange mistakes, and then I could really, in the beginning I couldn't understand at all what's how you actually make the perspective image, and what is this projective thing.
Right.
And then actually when I had found out a lot of rules how this image works, and where you need to put the vanishing points, but I had actually no real idea what it means in the three-dimensional situation. And then I remember very well the moment when I realized what is actually the position of the viewer and this projecting plane.
Okay, yeah.
And the reality of the world behind it, and how they actually relate to each other, and how you transform the drawing paper as projective plane. And that was really like a fantastic moment, that now I have really figured out something myself which is completely true or fact, and just figure it out, work it out myself.
Isn't that an amazing feeling?
It was. I really remember the enjoyment very well.
And that's why we do mathematics, I think, or that's one of the big reasons when we solve something and all of a sudden we realize that all the pieces come together and everything works. And imagine what you already got such a big hype from inventing, understanding something that was already known. Imagine you would do the same. Something new, and what you did also with the tilings.
And that, I could say that was the second, this kind of very, very fantastic moment when I was working, trying to figure out this tiling problem, and then I had actually put a lot of effort in the late 2011 for this problem, and at the moment I still had a grant from the Kone Foundation. I thought that, okay, this is really now the time when I can allow myself to use a lot of working time for this problem. I was so hard trying to solve this problem because I had some kind of idea how the solution had to work, and I was trying to crack it up, find the actual solution for perhaps 2 months in the end of the 2011. But in the end, I didn't manage to solve it.
Okay.
And there was some logical problem which was just like you couldn't actually solve it, and I was so disappointed and put the whole stuff back in the drawing board. And then like 3 months later in the March 2012 at some late night at home, I was again looking those funny sketches and geometrical things, and then I just got this idea which was actually the solution how you can circumvent this logical problem, which wasn't so total as I had thought before. And that was when I made the first test that now this seems to work, and then I made fast test, just hand drawings, and does this work for number 5, and it did, and then does it work for number 7? It took a little bit longer time, but then this really works, and that was really a moment of enjoyment that now I have actually found something which nobody else had before found.
That's amazing. And here we also find the same thing that also Olli Martio said, and I also say that when you hit the wall, you might want to take a break.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Then the solution might just come. Maybe it somehow happens in the subconsciousness. We don't really know why does this work, taking a break.
Yeah.
2 more questions. One is a funny one. Does art enter your dreams?
Sometimes, not very often, but.
Or vice versa, do you dream something and then you paint it?
Not really. I mean, sometimes I mean, generally I see very vivid dreams, very lively and colorful, and it sometimes happens that I see very, very fascinating things or spaces or whatever things in my dreams, but they are in some way they can be too difficult to actually paint or draw or whatever.
Okay.
And but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Many times I thought it might be so interesting if you could record some dreams and then
project them on a screen.
Yeah, and let some other people see the same things, and would they experience them also as powerful, or because there's sometimes so fantastic kind of landscape or whatever buildings or what kind of fantasy thing, and it's just.
In my case,
they're so precise or whatever things.
Yeah, sometimes you get really precise. Because in my case, they also mixed up with some non-visual stuff, and then it's impossible.
Yeah. Because I'm always surprised because people say that when they describe their dreams, they seem to be so fussy or unprecise or this kind of hazy.
But your dreams are very precise.
Oh yes, very precise and very colorful also.
Okay, and the last question before we have to leave the room. Imagine you met yourself when you were 20 years old. What kind of advice? You have 1 minute time to talk to that person. What would you say?
I would know that he wouldn't listen to me.
Oh.
I would certainly say something, but I'm sure he wouldn't listen to me. So
that's a fair enough answer.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I see. Okay.
But I guess that's an honest answer.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely an honest answer. And it might even already help someone who is 20 at this point. Thank you very much. I think that's very interesting. I didn't ask all the questions that I wanted to, but... Thank you for listening. Before you go, one more thing. If you want to support this project, as of March 2017, there is only one way to do that, namely sharing. You can share this podcast. You can share links to batsandseahorses.com with your friends, with your colleagues, and other people who you think might be interested in this kind of stuff. Interviews with artists, interviews with scientists, and tips and tricks on how to succeed in a creative life, and all other stuff that I post on my blog and my podcast. Recently, I have been also making 1-minute videos about various things in self-development, ranging from how to meet women to how to get rid of bad habits. You can find me on YouTube. Just type in my name, Vadim Kulikov, or Bats and Seahorses, you will find. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Bats and Seahorses. As you can see, all these ways to support me right now are free of charge. So I really appreciate if you do something. So long, and see you next time.